everyone, and welcome to the channel. My name is Kareth, and today's recipe is for chicken parm sandwiches as a meal in a jar. Now I'm going to show you how to make the bread as well as the chicken parmesan, and these are all going to be from shelf-stable ingredients. So my philosophy is this: if you're eating from your food stores, whether it's by choice or out of necessity, your meals don't need to be bland, boring, or repetitive. Freeze-dried food is incredibly versatile, and if you know how to cook with it, there are literally endless possibilities of what you can make with it. All right, I'm going to start with the bread. So you'll need a pint-sized jar. This is going to make the equivalent of like one loaf, or for today's purposes, we're going to make 2 sandwich buns. You could make 3, like 2 large sandwich buns or 3 medium sandwich buns. So the salt goes in the bottom of the jar, and then goes your flour and your yeast. Now this recipe is based on a recipe that I already have up on my channel for artisan bread, but that recipe was a large mix. It was like a big mix that you kept in your pantry, and then you could make 1 loaf at a time. This is just for the 1 loaf, okay, this amount. So I don't know a lot about baking. I am more of a cook, but I do know this. When you're measuring flour, you need to fluff your flour and then spoon it into your measuring cup. That will ensure that you don't pack in too much flour and then your ratios would be off. So make sure you do that. I'm using just all-purpose. It's organic flour from Costco. All right, on the top, you can put your yeast, and be sure to check your expiration date. Mine was good for about 1.5 years. That's it. It's just those 3 ingredients. You're going to add water. That makes the bread. All right, as far as the chicken goes for the chicken parmesan, this is going to be enough to make 2 large sandwiches or 3 medium sandwiches. I am not planning on using the tomato sauce or the mozzarella from Thrive Life. I've got marinara in my fridge I need to use, and some mozzarella I need to use up as well. So because of that, I'm just putting this in a pint jar. Now you'll need about 1.25 cups of our chicken slices. And if you'll notice when you open that can that there are some larger chunks, which is what we want to use for this recipe, and then some smaller pieces are also going to be in there. Try to avoid those. Those are a pain for this recipe, because what we're going to do is refresh these chicken slices, and then we're going to bread them and fry them. And it's a lot easier if you choose, like that, like the bigger pieces of chicken. That's what you want to look for. Just pick through your can and choose the larger pieces, and you'll thank yourself later when you're having to flip them over in the pan. So that pint-sized jar is 2 cups total. So you can tell when you get to about 1.25 cups of chicken dices or chicken slices. All right, so you need to keep the breading separate. I'm using Italian breadcrumbs and some Parmesan for the breading. You can kind of do it however you like, but I like those Italian flavored breadcrumbs. And our Parmesan is wonderful, but I went ahead and blended it up to make the pieces just smaller, to make it kind of more like grated Parmesan. But anyway, if you don't have the Thrive Life Parm, don't worry, because they're discontinuing that product. But don't worry, you can just write yourself a note. You can use any kind of parm whenever you go to make this recipe. You can even use the kind with a little green lid, just so you add some Parmesan to the breadcrumbs whenever you're going to bread your chicken. There is our chicken and breading jar. Now, this is what I was saying. You can make this using the Thrive Life tomato sauce, which is like a marinara, and the Thrive Life freeze-dried mozzarella cheese. And if you do that, which it's great, if you do that, you're going to use a quart-sized jar. You'll need a bigger jar, so get a quart-sized jar, and you can use 1/4 cup of that tomato sauce in a baggie, which you would refresh with 1 cup of water, an entire cup of mozzarella cheese, which you could refresh with about 5 or 6 tablespoons of water. So these are the jars that you could keep stored on your pantry shelf, and whenever you have a hankering for some chicken parmesan sandwiches, you will be able to make this. Now, this recipe does take quite a bit of time, and you have to be prepared for that. This is not one of my quickest recipes ever, but it is so delicious. It just turns out amazing, and you won't even believe that meal came from shelf-stable ingredients. It's fantastic. So you'll want to start with your bread, and you're just going to add 3/4 of a cup of water to that bread mix. And you'll want to stir it really well. Make sure all of that flour gets hydrated in that water. It just takes a minute for it all to come together. I like to scrape down the sides of the bowl and just make sure all of that flour is incorporated. Once all of the flour is off the sides of the bowl and you have kind of a dough ball or a dough mound, then you're done. That's all you have to do. There's no kneading involved here. It's very simple. And you'll need to cover that with plastic wrap and then put it in a warm place to rise for a couple of hours. I've found that the best place in my kitchen is in my oven. The oven is turned off, but the light bulb is on. And that's all the warmth it needs to rise really well. When this started, that little mound of dough looked like that. And then after 2 hours of sitting in the oven with the light bulb on, it more than doubled in size. And look at all those beautiful air bubbles. That is perfect. Oh, right. And while that bread rises, go ahead and refresh your chicken. That's the best thing to do. All right, let me show you how to make the bread. You'll need some sort of a bowl that you put some extra flour in, just maybe 1/4 of a cup, 1/3 of a cup, something like that. And yes, you need to flour your hands. And that's because this dough is very wet, and it's supposed to be. You want it like that, but you need some flour on your hands to help it to not stick so badly. So go ahead and divide your dough. I'm going to do 2 large sandwiches. If you do 3, just divide it into 3 pieces. You'll want to scoop up that dough and plop it into the bowl of flour. And you just want to coat the outside of that little mound of dough. And we'll shape it into a loaf shape, okay? So it's going to be really sticky. Don't worry. Just, you might have to turn it over several times. Just coat it with flour. Try to smooth the top just a little bit. Tuck under the edges. If you have seams, just make sure they're on the bottom. And yeah, just so it's in the shape of a loaf. You can set that aside onto some parchment paper, and then you can do the next one. So I put a little bit of flour on the dough itself, and I flour my hands some more. I'm just trying to minimize the sticking. But yeah, I'm not going to worry about it too much. Just flour the outside of that loaf, pat it in, tuck it under, smooth the top just a little bit, but just so it's in the shape of a loaf. Don't worry about it too much. It's going to be fine. You want it about the length of your hand. And then onto the parchment paper. Yeah, and that's all there is to it. I like to dust the tops with a little bit of extra flour because you need to cut some slits in it with a serrated knife. And this will allow your bread to expand during the baking process. It doesn't really rise a lot while it's sitting out, but it gets a really good rise when it's in the oven. And those slits are necessary. About a 1/4 of an inch deep is what you need. All right, and you have your oven at 425. Go ahead and put about a cup of hot water in a little dish under there. That'll give you some needed humidity in that oven, give you some good crust. So bake at 425 for 20 minutes. And while that bakes, you can set up a breading station and go ahead and bread your chicken. Now, if your chicken has been refreshing while that bread was rising, it'll be nice and soft and ready. So I went ahead and made an egg wash with the Thrive Life eggs. I did 1 tablespoon egg, 2.5 tablespoons water. You can use a fresh egg if you prefer. Go ahead and give that breading a stir. Mix that Parmesan in with the breadcrumbs. This is what you're looking for as far as refreshed chicken slices. When you squeeze them, they should be very soft. A little bit of water should come out. No crunchiness at all. So I just drained off that water and then gently poured that mound of chicken onto a paper plate, and then go ahead and season it. These chicken slices are not seasoned, so I put a little bit of Goya adobo on there just to give it a little flavor. And then you can just set up a breading station. This is how I did it. I did a couple of slices of chicken into the egg wash, get it completely coated on all sides, and then move that into the breadcrumbs, and then kind of push those chicken slices down into the breading, coat all the sides, shake off any excess, and then that's all there is to it. I think that egg wash really helps the breading to adhere to the chicken. And then you just do that whole process again. Rinse and repeat until all of your chicken slices have the breading on them. I'm sure y'all know how to bread meat. This is nothing new here. It's just that I don't know that everybody knows that you can do this with freeze-dried chicken. So even though this meat is already cooked, if you do a light breading on the outside and cook it quickly enough, you'll end up with delicious chicken parm that is not overcooked and it's not dried out. All right, now our loaves of bread are done. Aren't those gorgeous? And y'all, it smells so good. The kitchen smells amazing. Now, this is what I was trying to show you earlier. You don't get a lot of rise while it's just on the counter, but boy, do you get a good bounce in the oven. It's nice and poofed up. Go ahead and cool those on a wire rack so the bottoms don't get soggy on you. They need to completely cool before you slice them open anyway. All right, let's cook our chicken. I've got an iron skillet that I put some avocado oil in the bottom of. And over medium heat, we're going to fry up this chicken. Now you need to get a really good sizzle when you put it down. So make sure you let your skillet preheat long enough. I probably preheated mine for maybe 7 minutes or so. And you want to space out the chicken just a little bit. Don't crowd it too much, but it should all fit in there. That's probably a 10-inch skillet. And then you can just pan fry that chicken for about 2 minutes per side. Really, all you're wanting to do is brown that breading. If you cook it for too long, the chicken, which is, it's already cooked, it's going to dry out on you. So don't cook it for too long. Give it a flip once you get some good browning, and then fry it on the other side. That's good and browned on the underside. Then it's ready to pull off of the heat. And that's all there is to it. All right, at this point in time, my bread was cool enough to where I can slice it. If you slice it and it's just screaming hot, it just gets gummy on you. It doesn't cut well and it just gums up. So you have to wait a few minutes before you can slice it open. But just look at those air bubbles. Oh, y'all, this bread, it's so good. Now I had some random leftover sliced mozzarella, but not enough. And then I have some leftover shredded mozzarella that I needed to use up. So that's what I'm doing here. And then I went ahead and toasted that. You need to create a fat barrier, okay, on your bread. A fat barrier with this mozzarella is going to make sure that the bread doesn't get soggy when you add the sauce. So of course you can use the Thrive Life tomato sauce, but I had a little bit of marinara in the bottom of a jar that I needed to use. So I'm using that. I'm going to suggest you put a good amount of marinara down. I don't think you can really put too much sauce here because the bread is a little bit dense. I mean, it's not too heavy, but it's a little bit dense, and the chicken is already cooked and then you fried it again. So what I'm just saying is you don't want anything that's too dry. And I think a good amount of marinara helps to offset the dryness. And it's very, very good. In fact, I like to dip my sandwich in extra marinara. It's so, so good with it. So just load your chicken on one side of each sandwich. You're playing Tetris here. I'm not really good at Tetris, so anyway. But yeah, you should have enough meat to do the 2 large sandwiches or 3 medium sandwiches. Okay, and then you need to add some more mozzarella to the tops of your chicken. And you can add more Parmesan cheese as well for your chicken parm, and then toast those again. And that's what you're looking for. Good and melted cheese, and everything is hot. The marinara is warmed as well. And now we have our chicken Parmesan sandwich. Isn't that glorious? Just look at that. I was so pleased with how these turned out. I've had these multiple times. I've made this recipe multiple times. And each time I'm just amazed at how delicious it is. I don't think people would know that chicken was freeze-dried to start with if you didn't tell them, because it just tastes so good. The flavor of the chicken is wonderful because not only did we season it, but we also put it in Italian breadcrumbs and Parmesan cheese. So that just gives it great flavor. The bread itself is, amazing. It's great on its own. It's great in olive oil or with butter. But if you put chicken Parmesan on top of it with marinara sauce, it's something else, y'all. It's so good. All right, I'm just trying to give y'all some ideas of what you could do with the chicken and how to make the bread. You do not have to make this chicken Parmesan and put it on bread for a sandwich. Of course, you could just make some pasta and serve it on that. That is amazing as well. So just here to give you some ideas, here to inspire you just a little bit. Hopefully you can find something that you enjoy. All right, guys, I will include my full recipe in the description box below, as well as my shopping link in case you want to pick up any of the Thrive Life ingredients. I'll also include my website where you can pick up a copy of my cookbook. I have an ebook cookbook full of more than 90 recipes for meals in jars. It's a great asset to have in your arsenal if you own freeze-dried food. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. Please hit the like button if you enjoy my content and leave me a comment below and let me know what you think. All right, guys, I hope you'll have a blessed day. Thanks so much for watching. Happy Valentine's Day to you. And until next time, y'all take care and keep thriving.